A day on Mars. The red solitude. My first morning on Mars was far more frightening than my last morning on Earth. Because this time, there was nothing waiting for me outside the window. Literally nothing. Just red dust storms and faint memories of my home 225 million kilometers away. Morning. The awakening. The habitat's climate control system hummed its mechanical lullaby, a sound I'd grown to find oddly comforting during the 7-month journey here. But now, in this aluminum cocoon pressed against alien soil, it reminded me just how thin the barrier was between my warm breath and the frozen death outside. What was the temperature out there this morning, you might wonder? -87 degrees Celsius, cold enough to freeze carbon dioxide right out of the thin Martian air and deposit it as frost on every surface of our landing module. I lay still for a moment, watching condensation form tiny rivers on the curved ceiling above my sleeping pod. Dr. Sarah Chin, Commander Marcus Webb, and Engineer Pavel Kozlov were still sleeping in their quarters, their breathing creating a subtle symphony of humanity in this most inhuman of places. How strange it was, wasn't it, that the 4 of us, chosen from 8 billion people, would be the ones to call this rust-colored world home for the next 18 months. My tablet chimed softly. Mission Control's morning message, transmitted across the void and delayed by the 12 minutes it took light to travel from Earth to Mars. I touched the screen and my sister Emma's face appeared, pre-recorded, smiling that knowing smile she'd perfected over our 32 years of siblinghood. "Hey Mars girl," her voice was warm, cutting through the clinical coldness of the habitat. "Hope you're settling in. Mom wants to know if you've watered the plants yet." She laughed at her own joke. We'd brought seeds, of course, a small greenhouse module where we'd attempt to grow lettuce and radishes in Martian regolith. Could plants really grow in soil that contained perchlorates, those toxic compounds that covered the Martian surface? We'd know soon enough, thanks to the soil treatment system we'd spent months perfecting. I pulled myself from the sleeping pod, immediately feeling the difference Mars made to my body. The gravity here was just 38% of Earth's, wasn't it? Each movement felt like swimming through air, my muscles unconsciously overcompensating for resistance that no longer existed. After 6 months in zero gravity during transit, even this reduced gravity felt substantial, but it was a strange, dreamlike substantial, like moving through honey that had been thinned to water. The porthole window called to me. I'd been avoiding it, I realized, afraid of what I'd see. Or perhaps more accurately, afraid of what I wouldn't see. No blue skies. No clouds shaped like dragons or sailing ships. No birds drawing invisible lines across the heavens. What would greet me instead? The Martian dawn, such as it was, a pale butterscotch sun rising over the rim of Jezero crater, casting long shadows across rocks that might have once known the touch of water, 3.5 billion years ago. I pressed my palm against the triple-pane polymer window. It was cold, so cold. Outside, the wind, what passed for wind in an atmosphere 1% as thick as Earth's, pushed dust across the ancient lake bed. The particles moved in peculiar ways, didn't they, lifting and swirling in patterns that no earth wind could create, dancing to the tune of a different planet's physics. Beautiful, isn't it? I started, turning to find Commander Webb floating, no, walking. I had to remind myself we were walking now, toward me. Marcus was 53, a veteran of 3 ISS missions, and possessed the rare ability to make a cramped space station feel like a coffee shop back home. His gray-streaked beard was growing wild. We'd all agreed to abandon razors for the duration. Conserving water, we'd said, though truthfully I think we all wanted to look like explorers. Terrifying, I admitted. That too. He joined me at the window. You know what strikes me most? How quiet it is. On Earth, there's always sound, wind in trees, traffic, birds, insects, the ocean. But here... He trailed off. Nothing to carry sound except that whisper-thin atmosphere, I finished. The air pressure outside was just 6 millibars, wasn't it? You could shout yourself hoarse on the surface and no one 2 meters away would hear you. Not that we'd be doing any shouting without helmets. You'd last about 15 seconds in that atmosphere before hypoxia and ebulism, the boiling of bodily fluids and low pressure, ended your Mars adventure permanently. Dr. Torres, Marcus said formally, though his eyes were kind, we have a planet to explore. Shall we begin? Mid-morning, first steps outside the airlock cycle seemed to take forever. 3 minutes of depressurization while pumps whined and gauges flickered, reclaiming every precious molecule of oxygen to return to our life support systems. How long could we survive here with our current supplies, you might ask? 18 months if nothing went wrong, if no seals failed, if no systems malfunctioned, if no illness struck us down. The supply ship from Earth wouldn't arrive for another 3 years. We were, in the most literal sense possible, on our own. Pavel had gone out first, conducting the initial equipment check at 6 o'clock. He'd reported all systems nominal, but now it was time for the science team, Sarah and myself, to step onto the surface and begin the real work. Sarah Chen was our geologist, a woman who could read rocks like I read emotions and faces, who could tell you the story of a stone's billion-year journey with the enthusiasm most people reserved for their favorite novels. My suit, officially designated the Advanced Martian Exploration Suit, but which I'd nicknamed Titan for its bulky resilience, encased me in layers of protection. The heads-up display flickered to life, painting my visor with vital statistics. Oxygen at 98%, suit pressure nominal at 4. 3 psi, thermal regulation operating within parameters, radiation shielding active. That last one was crucial, wasn't it? Mars had no magnetic field, no thick atmosphere to shield against cosmic rays and solar radiation. Every moment outside was a gamble with invisible particles that could damage our DNA, a calculated risk we'd accepted when we signed up for this mission. The outer door opened. I'd seen 1,000 images of Mars. I'd studied every photograph returned by rovers and landers, memorized the geography of Jezero crater, knew the composition of the rock formations we'd come to study. But nothing, absolutely nothing, had prepared me for this. The landscape stretched before me in shades of rust and ochre and burnt sienna, a palette painted by iron oxide over eons. The sky above was not black as I'd somehow expected, but a pale butterscotch, a peachy beige that seemed to defy the notion of sky as I'd always understood it. Why did Mars have such a differently colored sky? Because while Earth's atmosphere scattered blue light, Mars's dust-laden air scattered red and yellow wavelengths, turning day into a sepia-toned dream. Dr. Torres, your telemetry shows elevated heart rate. Mission Control's voice crackled in my helmet, delayed by those eternal 12 minutes. I was hearing concern for a reaction I'd had a quarter hour ago. Just taking it in, I managed. Sarah was already at work, 20 meters from the habitat, kneeling before an outcrop of rock with the reverence of a pilgrim at a shrine. I bounded toward her, bounding, that was the only word for it, each step carrying me 3 times farther than it would have on Earth. The feeling was intoxicating and unsettling in equal measure. Elena, Sarah's voice came through the calm, breathless with excitement. Look at this. Look at this. The rock face she indicated showed clear stratification, layer upon layer of sediment laid down in what had once been what? A lake bed, exactly. Jezero crater had once held a lake fed by an ancient river, hadn't it, back when Mars was wetter and warmer and possibly, just possibly, host to microbial life. That's why we were here, why we traveled 225 million kilometers and risked everything. To answer one question, had life ever existed on Mars? These layers, Sarah continued, her gloved hand tracing the lines, they're telling us a story. See how they vary in thickness. That suggests seasonal changes, wet and dry cycles. This lake existed for millions of years. I deployed my portable spectrometer, pressing it against the rock face. The device hummed, analyzing the mineral composition, searching for the clay minerals and carbonates that would indicate long-term water interaction. The data streamed to my HUD. Phyllosilicates present, sulfates detected, trace carbonates. It was exactly what we'd hoped to find. How long ago was this lake full? I asked, though I knew the answer. 3.5 billion years, give or take a few hundred million, Sarah said. Back when Earth was still figuring out single-celled organisms, Mars had an ocean in its northern hemisphere and lakes like this one dotted across its surface. But then Mars lost its magnetic field, I continued, caught up in the story these rocks were telling. And the solar wind stripped away its atmosphere, and the water evaporated or froze into the regolith, and the planet died. Maybe, Sarah said softly, or maybe it just changed. Maybe life went underground, followed the water down into aquifers beneath the surface. That's why we're drilling next week. Noon, the greenhouse dreamed back inside. After 3 hours of surface work that had felt like 30 minutes, we gathered in the common area for our midday meal. The habitat was small, 20 meters in diameter, with modules arranged like petals around a central hub, but it was ingeniously designed. Every cubic centimeter had a purpose. The walls were lined with storage compartments, life support systems, computers, and all the equipment we'd need to survive and conduct our research. Pavel had prepared lunch, rehydrated chicken with vegetables, reconstituted from packages that proclaimed, "Just add water," with more optimism than the result warranted. But the food tasted like humanity, like civilization, like the world we'd left behind, and for that I was grateful. "How much water can we actually spare for the greenhouse?" I asked, knowing the answer would determine whether my botanical experiments could proceed as planned. Pavel, who managed our environmental systems with the precision of a Swiss watchmaker, pulled up a spreadsheet on his tablet. "We're recycling 98% of all water through the reclamation system," he said. "Every breath you exhale, every drop of sweat, every shower, all of it gets filtered, purified, and returned to the system. But we're losing about 2% to inefficiencies in what we call Mars tax, the small amounts that escape through airlocks and get used in soil experiments." "So," I pressed. "So we have about 50 liters per week we can allocate to agriculture, assuming no system failures." "It's not much." No, it wasn't much. But it was enough to begin. After lunch, I made my way to the greenhouse module, a transparent dome attached to the habitat's southern exposure, currently dark and empty but full of possibility. How could we grow earth plants in Martian soil? We couldn't, not without significant modification. The regolith outside was toxic, laden with perchlorates that would poison any earth life. But we'd brought equipment to wash and treat the soil, to add nutrients, to create something that might support terrestrial plants. I activated the dome's lighting systems, and the space flooded with the full spectrum of light our plants would need. The grow beds waited, filled with treated regolith that we'd spent the last week preparing. I had seeds, lettuce, radishes, wheat, tomatoes, all specially selected for their hardiness and rapid growth cycles. If we could make these grow, we'd be taking the first steps toward making Mars truly habitable. As I planted the first seed, a radish, simple and reliable, I thought about what we were really doing here. Were we explorers or colonizers? Scientists or invaders? Mars had been pristine for 4.5 billion years, untouched by life as far as we knew. And here we were, tracking our bacteria across its surface, digging into its rocks, planning to terraform it over centuries. Did we have the right? But then I thought of Earth, beautiful, blue, teeming with 8 billion people and counting. We needed to become a multi-planetary species, didn't we? Not to abandon our home world, but to preserve our species, to ensure that some cosmic catastrophe wouldn't end the story of human consciousness forever. Mars was our insurance policy, our backup drive, our second chance. I covered the seed with processed soil and whispered a small prayer to no particular deity. "Grow," I said. "Please grow." Afternoon. The dust storm warning. The storm appeared on our weather monitoring systems as a small red blotch on the digital map, about 200 kilometers to the southwest. Pavel called us all to the command center, his usual calm replaced by something that might have been concern. "Regional dust storm," he announced, pulling up satellite imagery. "Moving northeast at approximately 30 kilometers per hour. Will it hit us?" Marcus asked, already running probability calculations on his own tablet. 70% chance within the next 12 hours, Pavel confirmed. "It's not a global event, those only happen every few Mars years, but it could reduce visibility to near zero and coat all our solar panels." Our power came primarily from solar panels and a small nuclear reactor, didn't it? The reactor could keep essential systems running indefinitely, but the solar arrays were our surplus power source, the energy that let us run experiments, heat the greenhouse, charge our equipment. Lose the solar panels to dust, and we'd be operating on minimum power for weeks until we could clean them. "We need to secure all surface equipment," Marcus decided. Elena, Sarah, help Pavel outside. Everything not essential gets brought in or anchored down. We have maybe 6 hours before the storm hits. Martian dust storms were strange beasts, different from their Earth counterparts. With an atmosphere so thin, how could the wind possibly be dangerous? The simple answer was, it couldn't, not directly. The fastest Martian wind would feel like a gentle breeze on Earth. But the dust itself was the real threat, fine particles of iron oxide and silicon that could coat solar panels, infiltrate seals, scratch visors, and generally make life miserable for mechanical systems. The Opportunity rover had died, hadn't it, smothered by dust that blocked its solar panels during a global storm in 2018? We suited up quickly, running through the checklist with practiced efficiency. Outside, the butterscotch sky had darkened a shade, taking on an ominous amber quality. The horizon to the southwest was hazy, indistinct, as if the landscape were slowly dissolving. For the next 3 hours, we worked in deliberate haste, a contradiction that somehow made sense in the context of Mars. We secured sample containers, anchored scientific instruments, retracted the drone that Sarah had been using for aerial surveys, and covered sensitive equipment with protective tarps. The physical labor was actually easier here, wasn't it, in the reduced gravity? Lifting equipment that weighed 50 kilograms on Earth but felt like 19 kilograms on Mars made the work almost pleasant, despite the urgency. As we worked, I couldn't help but marvel at the landscape around us. Jezero crater stretched 45 kilometers across, its ancient lake bed now dry and dusty, its delta, where that ancient river had deposited sediments rich with organic compounds, possibly rising in terraced layers to the northwest. Every rock, every pebble, every grain of sand had a story spanning billions of years. Earth's surface was constantly recycled by plate tectonics, wasn't it? So the oldest rocks there were rarely more than 4 billion years old. But Mars was geologically dead, its surface a museum preserving the history of the early solar system. Storms accelerating, Pavel's voice cut through my reverie. We have 90 minutes, maybe less. The southwestern sky was no longer sky at all, but a wall of russet brown advancing like a living thing. I'd seen time-lapse footage of Martian dust storms, but experiencing one in person was entirely different. The storm wasn't loud, how could it be, with so little atmosphere? But it felt loud, felt overwhelming, a tsunami of red dust rolling across the ancient world. We finished our work with 40 minutes to spare and retreated to the habitat's airlock. As the last door sealed behind us and the repressurization cycle began, I watched through the window as the storm hit. Evening. Inside the storm, the dust enveloped us like a shroud, turning day into a peculiar twilight. The habitat's external lights activated automatically, piercing the murk with pools of LED white, but beyond those pools there was only the rust-colored darkness. The solar panel's output dropped to 15%, then 10, then effectively 0 as the dust blocked the sun. Switching to reactor power, Pavel announced. All non-essential systems going into standby mode. The habitat's ambient lighting dimmed slightly, and the ever-present hum of the life support systems dropped in pitch. We were safe, protected by layers of composite materials and engineering brilliance, but the storm pressing against our walls was a reminder of just how hostile this world was to human life. Sarah made coffee, real coffee, from our precious personal allowance, and we gathered around the common area's small table. Outside, the wind howled in silence, moving at perhaps 70 kilometers per hour but generating barely any force. How strange was that, a storm that could darken the sky but couldn't knock over a playing card. You know what I miss? Sarah said suddenly. Rain. Thunder. The smell of wet pavement. I miss my dog, Pavel admitted. Boris. He's staying with my sister. I wonder if he remembers me. Marcus stared into his coffee. I miss gravity. Real gravity. I know this sounds crazy, but I miss feeling properly heavy. I miss dropping something and having it fall at 9.8 meters per second squared instead of 3.7. They all looked at me. What did I miss? Everything and nothing. I missed my sister's laugh, the way my mother hummed while cooking, the feeling of grass under bare feet, the complexity of Earth's weather, the sound of rain on a roof, the smell of the ocean, the taste of fresh strawberries, the sight of a blue sky. I miss spontaneity, I said finally. On Earth you can just go. Walk out your door. Drive somewhere. Fly to another country. Here, every exit requires 30 minutes of suit prep. Every trip outside is a calculated risk. Even breathing requires technology. We sat in companionable silence, each lost in our own homesickness. How long had we been on Mars? Just one day and we had 547 more to go. 18 months stretched ahead like a vast desert, ironic, considering we were literally in a desert, on a planet that was essentially one global desert dotted with ancient riverbeds and the frozen remains of prehistoric seas. Tell me something hopeful, I said to no one in particular. Marcus smiled. In 300 years, maybe less, people will be born here. Mars babies with bones adapted to low gravity, lungs accustomed to recycled air. They'll grow up thinking of this as home. They'll look at pictures of Earth, green and blue and wet, and find it as alien as we find Mars. And they'll ask their parents, why did our ancestors leave that beautiful planet to come here? And their parents will say, because they were curious, because they were brave, because they wanted to give us a future among the stars. Sarah added, and in 1,000 years Mars might have an atmosphere again. We could terraform it, release the carbon dioxide locked in the polar ice caps, warm the planet, melt the underground ice. We could make it rain here, Elena. Real rain. How long would that take? I asked. Centuries, she admitted. Maybe a millennium. But humans are patient when we need to be. We built cathedrals that took 200 years to complete. We planted trees we'd never see mature. We sent Voyager to the stars knowing it would take 40,000 years to reach the nearest star system. We think in generations when we need to. Pavel, practical as always, brought us back to the present. First, we need to survive the next 18 months. Then we can worry about terraforming. Night. Contact from Earth. The storm showed no signs of abating when Mission Control's evening transmission arrived. My sister Emma's face appeared on the screen again, but this time my mother was with her, and my nephew Jake, 3 years old, born the same month I'd been selected for the Mars program. Hi Aunt Elena. Jake shouted, waving at the camera with the unself-conscious joy that only small children possess. Are you on Mars? Mom says you're on Mars. I'm on Mars, buddy, I said to the recording, knowing my response wouldn't reach them for another 12 minutes. Is it red? Is it really red? It's really red, I confirmed, smiling despite the tears that wanted to form. Red like your favorite fire truck. Emma took over. Mom wants to talk to you. Cheese. Well, you know Mom. My mother's face filled the screen, her eyes worried in that particular way only mothers can master. Elena, honey, are you eating enough? Are you warm? That storm they showed on the news looked terrible. I wanted to reach through the screen and hug her. How do you explain to someone 225 million kilometers away that yes, you're scared, yes, you're lonely, yes, you sometimes wonder if you made a terrible mistake, but also yes, you're exactly where you're supposed to be? I'm fine, Mom, I told the recording. Better than fine. I'm on Mars. How many people get to say that? We spent the evening watching messages from Earth, friends, colleagues, fellow scientists offering encouragement and sharing news from home. A new study had confirmed the presence of liquid water beneath Mars's southern ice cap, detected by radar from orbit. Did we know about that? Yes, we'd received the data weeks ago. Could we investigate? Not during this mission. The South Polar Cap was thousands of kilometers away, and our mandate was to explore Jezero Crater. But future missions would go there, would drill through the ice, would search for life in those dark, cold waters. As night deepened, a Martian night that lasted about the same duration as an Earth night, since Mars's day was only 39 minutes longer than ours, I retreated to my sleep pod. Through my small porthole, the storm had created an eerie twilight, the dust reflecting our habitat lights in strange, diffused patterns. I pulled out my journal, an actual paper journal, luxury beyond measure in our weight-limited mission, and began to write. Sol 1. My first full day on Mars. We've collected rock samples that might contain evidence of ancient life. We've planted seeds in alien soil. We've survived a dust storm. We've been homesick and hopeful in equal measure. I keep thinking about what Marcus said about people being born here, about Mars babies who'll think of this red desert as home. It seems impossible now, looking out at this hostile, frozen, airless world. But humans have always done the impossible, haven't we? We left the trees and walked upright. We crossed oceans. We flew. We touched the moon. We came here. Tomorrow we'll continue our work. We'll drill core samples from the lake bed. We'll search for biosignatures in rocks that knew water when Earth was still young. We'll take another step toward answering the question that brought us here: are we alone? But tonight, I'm just grateful to be here, terrified and homesick and more alive than I've ever been. Midnight. The first discovery. I was almost asleep when Sarah's excited voice crackled over the habitat's intercom. Elena. Marcus. You need to see this. I tumbled out of my sleep pod, my body still not quite adjusted to Martian gravity, and found Sarah at her workstation, surrounded by displays showing spectroscopic data. Her eyes were wide, her hands shaking slightly as she gestured to the screen. The sample I collected this morning, the one from the lake bed outcrop, I was running detailed analysis, and look at this. She pulled up a graph showing chemical signatures. These organic molecules. They're not contamination from Earth. I've checked and double-checked. They're indigenous to Mars. Marcus arrived, hair disheveled, wrapped in a sleeping bag. Organic molecules? We expected those. Meteorites bring organic compounds to Mars all the time. Not these, Sarah insisted. Look at the chirality, the handedness of the molecules. On Earth, life preferentially uses left-handed amino acids and right-handed sugars. These show a similar bias but reversed. Right-handed amino acids, left-handed sugars. And the concentration is too high for simple meteoritic delivery. These were produced in quantity, in an environment rich with water, 3.5 billion years ago. The implications hung in the air like the dust outside. Were we looking at evidence of ancient Martian life? Not definitive proof. That would require much more investigation, much more caution, much more rigorous analysis. But evidence? Potentially yes. We need to inform mission control immediately, Marcus said. It's not proof, I cautioned, my scientist training demanding skepticism even as my heart raced with excitement. It could be some geochemical process we don't understand yet. Of course, Sarah agreed. But Elena, what if it's not? What if life arose on Mars just like it arose on Earth? What if the universe is full of life, and we're not alone? We've never been alone. We composed a carefully worded message to Earth, emphasizing the preliminary nature of the findings, the need for further analysis, the possibility of alternative explanations. But beneath the scientific caution, the excitement was palpable. We might have found evidence that life had once existed on another world. As we finished the transmission, I looked out at the storm-shrouded landscape beyond our windows. Somewhere beneath that dust, beneath the frozen surface, Mars might be keeping secrets, ancient microbes perhaps, or their fossilized remains, or underground aquifers still teeming with microscopic life adapted to the cold and dark. The message would take 12 minutes to reach Earth. The response would take another 12. In that 24-minute interval, we waited, 3 humans on the edge of discovery, separated from home by an impossible distance but connected by the same curiosity that had driven our species to look at the stars and wonder. When Mission Control's response came, it was characteristically cautious but unmistakably excited. Proceed with detailed analysis. Follow contamination protocols. Collect additional samples. Document everything. And congratulations, team. Whatever you've found, you're writing history. Dawn of Sol 2. The storm had passed by morning. I woke to find the sky clearing, the dust settling, the sun rising over Jezero crater once again in that peculiar butterscotch glow. Pavel was already outside with cleaning equipment, working to clear the solar panels. Within hours we'd be back at full power. I returned to my porthole window, that place that had frightened me so much just one day ago. The landscape was the same, red dust, ancient rocks, the terraced delta where a river once flowed. But it looked different somehow, more welcoming, less alien. Or perhaps I had changed, not the landscape. My first morning on Mars had been frightening because I'd seen nothing outside my window, no familiar markers of home, no comfort, no life. But now I understood that nothing was something. The rocks were evidence. The dry riverbeds told stories. The dust itself was the weathered remains of a world that had once been different, might someday be different again. I thought of the seeds in the greenhouse, pushing their first tentative roots into processed Martian soil. I thought of the organic molecules in Sarah's samples, their chirality suggesting ancient biochemistry. I thought of Marcus's vision of Mars babies who would call this desert home. I thought of Earth, that blue jewel hanging in the night sky, and the 8 billion people who were counting on us to take these first steps toward a multiplanetary future. What was waiting outside my window? Everything. The history of the solar system. The potential for discovery. The future of human civilization. The possibility that life, in some form, might still exist beneath the surface. The challenge of making a dead world live again. My first morning on Mars had been frightening because I'd been looking for what Mars lacked. My second morning on Mars was hopeful because I'd learned to see what Mars offered. A new beginning, a fresh chapter, an entire world waiting to be understood. I pressed my palm against the cold window and whispered to the red planet outside, "Thank you for letting us visit, for keeping your secrets for so long, for giving us a reason to keep exploring, keep questioning, keep reaching for the stars." Somewhere 225 million kilometers away, Earth was spinning through space, carrying everyone I loved, everyone I'd ever known, the accumulated wisdom and folly of human civilization. But here and now, I was part of something larger, part of the ancient human impulse to explore, to discover, to push beyond the horizon and see what lay on the other side. The habitat's intercom crackled. "Morning briefing in 15 minutes, Marcus announced. "We have samples to analyze, seeds to tend, and a planet to explore. Let's get to work." I smiled and turned from the window. Outside, the Martian day was beginning, full of possibility and challenge and the promise of discovery. Inside, for humans were learning to call this red world home, one soul at a time. And somewhere in the treated soil of our greenhouse, beneath grow lights that mimicked the sun of Earth, a radish seed was beginning to sprout, a tiny green shoot of life asserting itself in the red dust of an alien world, marking the beginning of Mars's transformation from dead planet to living home. The adventure had only just begun. Mission log, Elena Torres, Ph.D. Mars Exploration Program, Sol 1. We came to Mars as visitors. We may leave as pioneers. The question is no longer whether humans can survive on Mars, but whether Mars can survive humans. Either way, we're here now, marking our presence in the dust of ages, planting our flags and seeds and hopes in ancient soil. Whatever comes next, success or failure, life or sterility, habitation or abandonment, Mars will remember this moment. When 4 humans from a blue world looked up at a red star and decided to close the distance, to bridge the void, to take those first uncertain steps toward becoming a species of 2 worlds instead of 1. Sleep well, Earth. Your children are safely home, just not the home you expected.